Hey guys, I'm on a bit of an adventure today. We're in the Kootenays at Castlegar, and this guy supposedly got a very interesting piece. I don't know if it's an original or what it is, but we're going to look at this guy's collection. Supposedly has a steam-powered truck. And steam is something that's always it always has interested me. And we're just going to go check it out. Right now we're following this Festiva right here. What more could you ask for? A purple Festiva. It's really interesting in itself. Turns out that I know our tour guide. He helped my dear stepson Jacob find some Festiva parts for his when he was broken down in the middle of the road out here in Selmo or someplace. Anyways, it should be interesting going to this guy's collection this morning. He's got all kinds of weird shit in there, supposedly. He's got a supercharged Packard, supposedly. But this steam-powered wagon, I'm very interested in seeing. Like, the only steam-powered one that I know of is like the Stanley Steamer Brothers back in, I don't know, the 1900s, 1920s, somewhere in there. But there's a whole bunch of other companies that built steam vehicles. And I'm just really curious as to what this is actually, or what the components are in it. So, again, it's a goddamn adventure. This guy's got all kinds of stuff. Look at there. There's a Ford guy. There's Fords. And all kinds of here. He's got a Monte Carlo over there. There's a trailer. All kinds of stuff. Okay, guys, I'll let the goddamn adventures begin. So, Avery's my name.
And Greg's mine.
Pleased to meet you, man. And you watch me on television once in a while, you said?
I saw you on the tube. I saw your buddies on the tube and dragging home all this stuff.
All the pre-owned artifacts?
Yeah.
Tell me, do I look any skinnier?
Yeah. I don't know. Looks like you're not starving.
Definitely not. This is a very, very unique piece. I've been looking at it for an hour or so. Tell me a little bit about it. What? It's got a lot of power.
It's the engine is rated at a 20 horsepower compound steam engine, and steam is an amazingly different power than gas.
Like I was telling these guys, that motor's probably capable of probably somewhere over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. It's compound steam engine means that it uses the steam in one cylinder, and after it to its maximum, and then it pushes the steam off to the next cylinder, and it uses it a second time. So it gets double the power out of it.
Oh, interesting.
So,
how many miles to the gallon of water?
Yeah. I don't know how many miles to quart of wood. It's wood fired.
It is, eh?
Yeah.
I'm surprised nobody put a gas burner or something in it. So tell me something about that boiler. Is it an actual boiler? Did somebody make it? Is it a legal boiler?
It's a legal factory boiler. The old timer that built this, he was an old friend of mine, and he worked on it for about 8 years putting it together. And he bought a new boiler for it, paid a lot of money for it. And there's a new boiler in there, and the engine's been gone through by a steam outfit down at the coast there's a big steamboat club. Okay. And they took the engine into their shop and rebuilt the engine or did whatever they had to do to it. And I have never actually run it, but I've seen it running up at his place. Okay. And he drove it around his yard and around the farm. He never had it out on the highway, but he drove it around his farm. And seen it running in various times, and they just sit there and turn over some ice, and he'd blow the whistle. And
you can't legally drive that vehicle unless you have a steam ticket.
There are some regulations that I wouldn't want to get quoted on it, but I understand under a certain pressure, you don't have to have a steam ticket.
Okay, that's what I was curious about, that I was talking, that motor is so big in there that you probably only need to run it probably a third of the normal pressure. Well, it's just barely into steam to have a run. Because that motor, I do believe that motor, it probably makes the same amount of power as like a 671 Detroit or something, I would think. It's tremendous the power a steam engine that size makes.
But evidently, I'm not a steam engineer and know little about them, but I understand that steam will multiply its volume up, or water can multiply its volume through steam up to 300 times.
Is that what it is? I know it was 1 cubic meter or one cubic foot of water makes 2,000 cubic feet of steam or something like that. It's amazing what it does. Yeah. And like I was explaining to these guys, that boiler, if it ever blew up, would take out small neighborhood almost.
Probably.
Yeah.
But the boiler, and all I can go by is what he told me. They tested after they put it together. They pumped it up. They tested it. He tested it at 300 pounds, but it's set to pop off at 100 pounds now.
So it's very low pressure it's running at.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, just barely making steam.
Well, I don't know. It makes 100 pounds, and you wouldn't want to.
Steam is very interesting. Like a steamer, when it's set up, you're making, I think it's 10 pounds of pressure on it. When it comes out at the end, it comes out at probably about 100. It's very, like you say, the compound is very, I don't know a whole lot about it. I piddled around with steamers a little bit before, rebuilt a couple of them.
Well, you know a lot more than I do
about it. It's interesting. Again, it's very interesting.
It's a very interesting truck. I just don't have enough room for it. I don't have enough room for it either. In a weak moment, I went and bought another vehicle, and I've got my shop is plugged up.
You know what? I've never had a weak moment a day in my life. I don't know. There must be something the matter with you.
You can hook an air hose up to it. I've hooked an air hose up to it, and it'll run on air.
Run on air, yeah. Yep. I see the fittings on the very back here. Yep. Is that what the fittings are in the back here? I've been snooping around here a little bit looking at it. There's the fittings on the back.
See, this is part off my Jeep. I just was tripping over it. Yeah, and there's a little, these motes here, this was put on by the guy that I got it from. And this one here hung on this, and it tells you what it is.
Okay. So you just turn the air on and you can take and run, you just run the motor, you can sit in the motor, it'll sit and run on air.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, well, it's air, steam, same difference.
It needs a pretty skookum compressor to run it, of course.
Yeah, the volume it would take quite a bit, I would think.
You'd have to have more than the Canadian Tire Special.
You need quite a bit of CFM, I would think.
This is the damper for the.
I see that. It's fairly interesting how it's rigged there. You got the thing hooked up here right at the front of your truck there, and you just hey.
I don't know why the.
What's throttle response on it when you open the throttle up on it? Is it?
I don't know this.
Yeah, I would think it goes on there.
Yeah, I don't know how that.
But hey,
they took it to this truck show and I don't know whether they.
Oh, everybody have to have their finger in it.
Yeah.
Again, I'm wondering what's throttle response when you open the damper or the stove up for it to get going.
Here, 12-volt battery goes in here, and there's a pump back in there that pumps the water into it. This is an auxiliary water tank, and you can replenish your water in the boiler through this tank.
Now, is this a 100% lost steam engine, or does it recoup any of the steam out of it? It just goes up the smokestack.
Well, this is part of it. Recouping steam is part of that compound engine.
Okay. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I just, again, enough to have a conversation. How intelligent the conversation is, I don't know, but a conversation.
I think you know way more than me about it.
It is something steam has always intrigued me. Stanley steamers, I've seen only a couple of them in museums. It's definitely very interesting. The bottom line is, though, I guess it comes down to the end of the day, is what is it worth? And I should say not what it's worth. What do you need to get out of it?
Make me an offer.
Let me ponder the thought on that for an hour or two. The problem is, let me ponder the thought on that for a little bit. Because in order for me to take and use this thing and not trip over it all the time, I'll have to go to school or take and find out about your steam ticket or whatever to take and be able to take and drive this thing. And whether I'm allowed to drive it or not allowed to drive it, or steam under what pressure, like you said, to see what I'm allowed or not allowed to do.
Somebody told me that you can run up to 150 pounds without a steam ticket and without having it certified. And this engine would like to have 300 pounds.
This engine at 300 pounds, it would a tremendous amount of power. I would say it has to make over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque.
That's interesting.
Like it's very it's got a large motor in it. How big a boat did that motor come out of?
I don't know. There's quite a history on it. That the old timer that built this, he was pretty knowledgeable, obviously pretty knowledgeable about steam, and he said he used to go out dancing. Him and his wife went out dancing, and they went to a dance one night, and there was a couple there that said, you know, you're into old cars and stuff. We've got this funny engine sitting in our barn that was there when we bought the property. And I'm sure it came out of a paddle wheel or steam wheel, stern wheeler or something on the Arrow Lakes. And
interesting.
He went out to pick up this old car engine, and lo and behold, it was a steam engine. Oh, wow, you know.
Thought he won the lottery.
Yeah. That's a pretty valuable engine.
It's very interesting. Like I say, it's very, very interesting. Now, on another note, I hear you got something fairly interesting in your shop here. I seen a picture of it.
I have to go and get a key.
You go get a key and let's go check this out.
It has a 4-speed transmission in there.
I see that.
But this lever here, this reverses the engine.
That's kind of what I thought. Forward and reverse, and also the speed of the motor.
Forward and reverse on the engine. And this is an oiler here. There's some steam oil, steam cylinder oil. You pump oil into the cylinder. I don't know what else I could tell you.
You set this right here. So whatever you want to go for speed, say you wanted to go, you want a little bit more torque, you set it down there, change the stroke or whatever it was, and then you got to, it's like transmission and auxiliary. You got a 5 and a 4 in there almost. Hey, you got a 5 and a 4.
This is the throttle.
That's kind of what I figured. That's kind of what I figured it was. Yeah.
And when there's a bell was supposed to be hanging right here, the bell was sitting.
It's on the ground there somewhere. Yeah.
That's when they had this in the big truck show down here.
What's with the name on here? What is this?
The father of the fellow that built this, his name was Valentine, and he was a pioneer in the Slocan Valley. And his first name was Valentine. Last name was Kosiancic. Valentine Kosiancic. And so the Valentine was the father of the fellow that built it. And the fellow that built it, when he passed away, was just about 90 years old. So this goes back a long way.
What did he do for a living, the fellow that built this?
They farmed in the Slocan Valley, and they had this big farm. They had a dairy farm and a crop farm, and they used to ship 1,000 pounds of turnips every year, and I don't know what all.
Yeah, you're turnip farmers. I like it.
And everything else.
No kidding.
And dairy farm, and
it's very, very interesting. Anyways, you got some other artifacts in your building here.
A couple things.
Let's go take a gander. I think there's something there that's pretty darn neat. My mother used to have one of these. Most people I ever got in it was 10 of us.
My daughter tells about, and her couple, and my niece and her husband tell about when they were young folks. One of them had a Volkswagen Beetle, and the most they ever got in there was 13.
I guess I could have got more in.
And a Volkswagen Beetle.
This here jewel here, it looks like it was restored 2 days ago. When did you restore this?
Close to 45 years. Over 40 years. At the year that Mount St. Helens blew, we drove that car to the May Tour in Kamloops.
God, it's in good shape. I did one of these on our show, and I've had a little bit to do with them, and I'm almost too fat to drive one.
It's a little squeeze to get in there. With the wind wings on, you got to crawl around it. There was a little seeping on the oil pan, and I pulled the pan off, ordered up gasket for it. Took me a long time to get them, and wow. I got to put the pan back on. It runs fine.
Now this has obviously got. What is the motor in this? This has got a little bit newer motor than the T in it, right?
Yeah.
These cars here, you can actually use these cars, unlike a Model T. Well, obviously a Model T you could use, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit more creature comforts than a T.
I can open the hood.
Open her up. Let's take a gander.
This engine here, though, when I built it, I put what they call a Model C crankshaft in it.
Now, what is that?
The Model C. Model A had a crankshaft like a bent crowbar.
Yeah, it looked like a piece of junk.
Model C had a full counterbalance shaft.
Okay.
And it's got a Model C crank in it, which makes it run much smoother and a little faster without hurting it any.
See, this motor's got a distributor, as we know nowadays, as a distributor, unlike the Model T, with the distributor on the front. Does it have the coil pack? Has it got a normal coil pack on it?
The cap just isn't on it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a standard ignition coils up there.
Okay.
It's not like a T. T's got those individual coils.
A T is very interesting. You know, a Model T, the modern day cars that we run today, do you know have the same ignition as a Model T had back when it was first made? It works on the same principle as a Model T. Did you know that?
No.
Pretty interesting, eh?
Model T had the big magneto on the flywheel.
But it also had that. Yes, it did. Because you could run it with a battery or without a battery, or start it with the magneto and have it run on the magneto, or have it run off the battery. But the ignition system on a Model T on the front had a pickup on it and 4 individual coils for each cylinder. And it would send a single when it hit the pickup over here. It would send it to that coil, or that coil when it hit the contact. And the new vehicles that we drive today that are gas powered run on the same thing.
They have individual coil.
They have a cam sensor which picks it up. It's the same as that. And an individual coil pack on them, the same as the Model T did. So they went right back into the very beginning, but one's analog, obviously, and one's electronic.
Also, Model T had the first automatic transmission.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it just worked with pedals instead of a hydraulic valve.
I tell you what, they're dangerous to drive them Model Ts, because you step on what you figure is the clutch, and it's forward gear, and you drive right into something that's in front of you.
I had a Model T one time. Bought this Model T, tall T coupe. Me and my cousin bought this car together, and when we parked it, took it home, and I had it all figured out how to drive it. I drove into the garage, and figured I was going a little fast, so I went to stomp on the pedal to stop it. I stomped on the pedal, went into reverse, and popped back out of the garage.
For you guys listening, a Model T has 3 pedals. Okay, the first pedal is forward. The middle pedal, I do believe, is the brake. And the other pedal is reverse. And if you press on both reverse and the stop pedal, it'll blow you up a little bit faster. It's a little hard on the reverse lining. But it also, you step on the first pedal and you get going to the speed, and then you grab down here onto a Johnson bar and you pull the bar back, and that kicks you into high gear and locks it in, and away you go down the road.
Anyway, that's the Model A. We drove that to Kamloops. We drove it to Okanagan, to Penticton, to the May Tour car shows, and various times across the border. And had a lot of fun with it.
This car looks like this car's in very good shape. I guess when you did it, you had all the best parts to pluck from.
You know, it was rough when I
Went it rough?
hauled it home. When I was building it, I was looking for, the fenders were all busted up on the back, and I was looking for a pair of coupe fenders, and they're hard to find. And a friend of mine went to Hershey Swap Meet, and I told him, watch for a pair of coupe fenders, and he phoned me up, and he said there's probably the last set of brand new old stock Ford fenders here that somebody has, not reproduction. And he said I can buy them. He said I'll buy them for you. He paid $400 for them, and to get them home, he got a couple of pieces of board, made a box for it, put them in the box, took them to the airport, and put them on the airplane as luggage, and hauled them back to the Okanagan. That's where these fenders came from.
That would have been a lot of money back when you did this at $400. I felt the inners and the outers. There's no nothing. They're brand new.
You can feel the bead here.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling for in the front ones. They're look at that. You feel that? Feel this right here.
Yeah.
That's where the.
Well, that's the way to feel if somebody's got a fender full of Bondo on the Model 8.
No shit. what we're feeling right here, there's a bunch of ribs like on say like on a quarter. You hear that? There's a bunch of ribs on there where it went through the machine that took and rolled a bead on it, would grab onto it and grip it and run it through.
I can tell you know your Model 8s.
But anyways, a rumble seat, that's if you're tired of listening to somebody, you put them back there, right?
That's the first one I restored. That was in that 28 Chevy touring car. That was bought by my father in about 1933. And chopped into a little truck, and we used it. We hauled hay and wood and manure and everything around the farm. And when they cut it into a little truck, they took the back seat bucket, put it in the house for a couch. You never threw anything away in those days. You know?
It was a different time, hey?
When I decided to restore
you cut the back seat out, made it into a truck. You took the back seat out of it, cut it apart, took the back seat out, put it in the house for a couch.
Yep. So when I went to restore it, and how many 28 Chevy touring cars have you ever seen? By 1928, they were all closed sedans, so they were very, very rare. And when I went to restore it, I had the back seat because it was still in the house.
And then you got an iconic Thunder Chicken here.
Hmm? That's the one that I bought in a weak moment.
Well, I tell you what. If you have a weak moment and it looks this good, it ain't that weak of a moment.
This is
This is
the one that I drive the most.
This here, you guys, is quite a special, interesting, very interesting car. I only know a little bit about this because I seen a picture from Jeremiah sent me of it. How many of these were built?
Not very many. This is 497 or something off the line. The number is on the, and on the doorpost. There's a plate that says Packard Motor Company.
This car is supercharged. What year is it?
57.
Interesting. Can we pop the bonnet on this?
Oh, you bet. It's heavy though. I don't know if I can lift it up. Oh, I can. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I can pick it up.
Ha!
Everything you see is 100% stock.
Now, that is, as we know it right now, would be like a Paxton? A Paxton, or what brand is that?
It's a McCullough.
McCullough.
But Paxton, it's the forerunner of Paxton. The next year, 58, the same blower was on, except this is variable pitch pulley. I've taken the bell off because driving around town, I don't need the supercharger. This car performs so well without it that I don't want to wear out my blower just driving it up and down to A&W. And Paxton they put a solid pulley. I have a Paxton blower sitting on my shelf.
Now, how many horsepower does this Jewel make?
They advertised in 275 out of the box in 57.
That's interesting.
It's got an overdrive, 3-speed and an overdrive, and a hill holder.
What the hell? Now, what is a hill holder?
A hill holder, when you drive up the hill, you step on your brake and your clutch, and then you can take your foot off the brake and the car doesn't roll back.
I thought back you might have a block of wood with a wedge and a rope on it.
The hill holders never came out in the modern cars still.
No, this car is original. Have you redone it, or is this original?
Twice.
You got some use out of it then?
Well, the first time I wasn't happy with my restoration job. It was, and I had trouble finding engine parts, and this. Anyway, the second time we redid the engine. My son has an engine building shop, and it's completely been gone through. It's running 80 thousandths over pistons now, and Studebaker. This Studebaker engine you can bore to 125, and they're good.
That thick a core?
Oh, they're huge, thick block.
Huh?
So, They're a really good car, you know.
I cut one of these in half.
This car drives so nice and performs so well. And
I cut one of these in half with a saw right here and hung it on our wall. It's a Silverhawk.
The Silverhawk.
Don't hate me for it. It was rusted to nothing.
Silverhawk was a 2-door post though, and you notice it's a 2-door hardtop.
Yes, because the back window rolls down here and there's no post right here.
On this, yeah.
Yeah, that was a post, I do believe.
There were several model of Hawks that they built. The Golden Hawk was the top of the line, of course.
This, what was the fiberglass one they made?
Oh, that Avanti.
Well, that's interesting.
That's just supposed to stay down.
Does that automatically pop up?
When you open the door.
Yeah.
It's a flipper.
That's interesting. See this little thing here for a rain catcher or whatever? It's amazing the innovations they had. Just small things that you just, something new comes out on a car it was built on there 50 years ago. Interesting.
Ford had them too. That 56 Ford has flippers on the window. The 56 Ford is the original car. It's never been restored.
Has it been painted?
Nope. Totally stock.
This jewel here, tell me a little bit about this.
This was an 8-year restoration. That's a 1930 Packard.
I see a problem. I think your passengers may have starved to death in the back seat.
They're waiting for a ride.
Your passengers may have starved to death in the back seat. Believe it or not, I have a little bit of experience with these. My friend has one. It ate the seat out of about cylinder number 5.
The valve seat.
Yeah, the valve seat fell out of the exhaust side of it.
Oh yeah.
And I need to find somebody to put a seat back in it, but I don't want to take the motor out. I don't know. It's very interesting.
I used to have a portable. I don't know whether.
This thing has a timing chain in there that's about this thick.
That's right. This engine is straight 8-cylinder, and it's got 9 main bearings. There's a main bearing between every rod.
All I know, again, is the timing chain right in here to run the cam. That timing chain.
What year is your friend's Packard?
I can't tell you because I don't know. It's pretty close to the same year as this. But
I have a bunch of Packard parts.
Oh, do you? You don't have a valve seat, eh?
Oh, you just passed it. Perhaps.
You just measure it out, have one built, just press it, sweat it back in there.
I used to have a portable rig. You cut the seat out by hand. It's made by Sue, and I don't know if my son has an engine building shop, and he's kind of taken over some of this equipment that I had.
Okay.
And
Sue, by the way, Sue is the best of the best when it comes to valve grinding stuff.
If he still has this portable toolkit that I had, a portable tool, this machine, you're welcome to borrow it.
Either that or a gal will have to take in this and put the seat in there. Either that or have to lap it in with a stick.
But you can cut it out and drive an oversized seat in it.
Will it cut the seat too?
Yeah, it cuts. It's made to cut the.
Okay.
Cut the seat right out.
Okay, I thought you were talking about because they got carbide cutters for cutting, not cutting the seat out, but cutting the seat.
Yeah, it'll cut the seat.
Okay.
But
I used to grind valves back in the day. I ground about 3 million of them.
If it's an insert, you can pop that insert out.
Well, the insert come out all by itself.
Yeah.
The insert come out and went through whatever it went through.
So you have to put an oversized one in there and press it in. I have 2 or 3 Packard blocks, and I've got a bunch of 29 Packard parts. This is a 30. I've got a frame and wheels and all this on it. I also have a complete chassis for a 28 Packard. So if you're into Packard,
I tell you what the problem is? Time.
This car, if you're familiar with Packards, this has a lot of things. It's got Beecher lubricator. Beecher is the brand.
Can we take a look at the other side and look at it?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Packard called that the goddess of speed. And it got nicknamed the Donut Lady. The Beecher lubricator, there's 43 points on the chassis. You pull a plunger under the dash and it lubricates it. There's the oil tank.
Now, something kind of interesting down here. Take a look at the oil gauge. I don't know if you can read it or see it or not, but the oil gauge is that little thing right down there. There's no dipstick on this car. There's a dial right there, and that'll tell you your oil level in there. There's a cork float in the pan that floats up and down and runs that needle.
You're pretty familiar with it.
Yeah. The pan, to take an oil pan off one of these, I got the oil pan off the other one that I'm dicking with.
You need to have a look inside at the wood graining on the dash and stuff in this car.
The wood grain on here, it looks like it's 100% real wood, but it's painted on. And if you look at it, you would think without even a question that it was real wood, but it's painted on.
Notice the bud vases in that corner and so on.
You got some handles back there for holding on when you come around the chicanes too fast. You know, it was definitely a different time, you know.
But I have an article that said in 1929, the cheapest Packards sold for the equivalent of 5 of the most expensive Fords.
What was a Ford worth back then? It was about $600.
Yeah. Well, my father-in-law had a brand new Ford in 1929, and it was $425 out of the box car, he said. In salmon arm.
And you know what? You could have it in any color you wanted as long as it was black.
These are thermostatically controlled shutters in 1930.
You know, they had stuff back in the day that we think is new now that they've had for a gazillion years. These headlights are quite something. It's
Go take a look at the back end.
God, that's beautiful.
That's where you put your golf clubs when you go down to the.
Look at the woodwork on that. And just, hey, it's amazing how good a shape this car is in.
You know what? It's no fun driving these anymore because of the crazy traffic on the road. This runs, it'll flash up and run like a clock right now. You know that with this one tuned up, it'll sit and idle and you can balance the tuning on edge on the cylinder head.
I don't doubt that. There is nothing in the world that runs like a flathead.
Nothing in the world that runs like a Packard.
Is that that's serious, hey? No. I don't know a whole lot about this old stuff, but I do know that I like it. It's got a different feel about it. It's just different. There's a large place in Chatham, Ontario. It's called RM, Auto Restoration.
Okay.
And they got stuff like this in it. Stuff like this in it. Everything in it. And some old stuff. They got Duesenbergs in there. Old Ferraris in there. They got a couple Gullwing Mercedes in there. Now there's a beautiful car. A Gullwing Mercedes.
Oh, yeah.
But if you ever get down around there in Ontario, make gall darn sure that you stop by and go to R&M and go say hi to the guys there. They got stuff there that it's quite very, you would very, very much enjoy it. When's the last time you drove this?
I haven't had it out on the road for about 4 years, but last time I drove it was around the yard here about a month ago.
Oh, no kidding.
I can
Nice.
flash it up right now. If you want to hear it run.
Yeah, start it up. I would like that.
Smoke it up in here.
I'll just start it up. Let's hear it rattle.
It doesn't rattle.
Oh.
This is a vacuum tank. You're familiar with vacuum tank?
I know what a vacuum tank is.
Yeah.
Now, what exactly are you doing there?
I just turned the gas on.
Okay.
There's a valve right here, so it doesn't fill up the carburetor. And anyway, the vacuum tank pulls the gas from the back tank instead of a fuel pump. This.
Oh, okay. Can we leave that open?
Yeah.
I tell you what. Now, I'll have to be honest with you. I did not think that thing was going to start turning over that slow. This old stuff, it is very, very interesting. And you can't appreciate how smooth it is running right now. It's yeah. And this thing, again, is totally cold. And this thing right here, it's quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre how finely made this stuff was. You know, the newer stuff you think is all great and all that in a bag of chips. Well, this stuff here has probably 300 times the workmanship in it than newer stuff does. Is it better? It's just different. Here's something interesting here. The generator down there is gear driven. There's no belts on the alternator or the generator. It's all gear driven. And the belt inside of, or the chain inside there to run everything is bigger than the chain. Okay. The drive chain in there to drive everything has got a bigger chain in it than you have on your four-wheel drive Jeep. And I know that because I seen one. Not the Jeep, but I seen the chain out of one of these. I tell you what.
Packard called it the silent chain.
Were they the first to use that style of chain? Because everybody uses that chain in a lot of things.
Gotta shut the gas off.
Oh. There we go.
I didn't know if there was enough battery power. You can leave them unlatched.
I tell you what, it's very interesting how slow that motor turns over and actually will fire and turn over that slow to draw that fuel out of that updraft carburetor. Yeah. It's very interesting.
This is what it takes a little bit. It doesn't have a big, it's a 6-volt system too, you know.
That's why it cranks so slow, hey?
Yeah.
I tell you what, thank you for starting that up for me. It was a real pleasure listening to that run. Like, if you've never heard a flathead run before, you're missing out. If you never heard a Packard run before, you're really missing out. How many of these made?
55.
Well, there's millions of these cars made, were there not?
Well, in 47 there might have been 1 million. And 46 and 42 and...
Well, 42, the war, they stopped production on everything, did they not, or what?
But this is a Canadian Mercury. It's a 114 Mercury, and the American Mercuries were 118s, and the Canadian Mercury Businessman's Coupe. There was a very low production, and I think they were using up all the parts they had left over from 47 when they made 48.
All day long, I deal with a lot of old motorcycles, a lot of old Harleys, and you can do all kinds of weird parts. They got a bunch of stuff laying in a barrel, and they will just chuck her on the next model year and put them on there because you got 3 different model years, and there's all kinds of weird stuff from different model years on them. And back in the day.
In my opinion, when they made these 114 Mercuries, I think they took the Ford body and stuck it stuck Mercury trim on it, and there you got the Canadian Mercury.
It's probably exactly what they did. They didn't change a whole lot of tooling back in the day, I don't think.
This part here, the front seat, pulls up from here, it's hinged along there, and then folds up, and you get out the hole behind the seat. There's so many people tell you that they have a businessman's coupe, and they're not. They had a little back seat in it that's been taken out or something.
Okay.
This has a different roof line than the standard coupe.
Now, again, for the layman's listening out there, a businessman's coupe was kind of like a work truck, was it not? It was it was a carry-all work truck. Kind of, it was something for packing your supplies and all your pieces and parts and stuff you were trying to sell.
It has a bulkhead here and a huge compartment behind the seat where the Fuller Brushman carried his wares and Watkins man and Raleigh's man. And
back in the day, you didn't phone Amazon. This was your Amazon guy right here coming to your house.
When I was a kid, about twice a year, somebody'd show up here with some kind of a car with a load like this and a bunch of Watkins products and Raleigh's products, and my mother would go out there and pick out these things she wanted.
It's amazing how it's changed, but it went back but changed.
So
it's still coming to your house, but you're getting it off your golder and you're getting off the computer.
And that's why you had the whole tour. This is of course, is
the Eldorado. Yeah, my mother had one of these. As I said before, it got used to its fullest. You can put down. It got a lot of power. It put down a strip of rubber, probably about 20, 30 feet long.
They're a real cruiser, though.
I tell you what, I appreciate the tour.